Hello friends and welcome back to Country Mama Musings for our Heirloom Afghan Crochet Along. Today we're going to be working on square number 16, block number 16, and it's going to be the classic granny square. So go ahead and grab your size H hook and whatever color you designated as color C. For me that's teal. Whatever your color C is what you're going to want to do your granny square in. So let's go ahead and get started. You're going to want to go ahead and make a slip knot and get that yarn on your hook. And this is going to be a little different than what we're used to. This is kind of going to be like our Afghan square where we worked in a round instead of rows. We'll be doing that again here for our granny square. We're going to start with a chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm going to say right here, if you would like to go ahead and start this with a magic circle, if you're familiar with a magic circle and you're comfortable with that, you can. However, I am sticking true to our pattern today and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start this with a chain 4 to get our center ring. What we're going to do now is we're going to go to our very first chain right here and we're going to slip stitch into that chain. We're going to place our hook in there, grab our yarn and pull it through that chain and then through the loop that's on our hook. And this is going to create a little ring that we're going to be working in. Round 1 will be worked entirely in this ring. Now I really want to caution you to pay attention where you place your stitches. You're not going to place them in this chain. It looks like there's a little ring right here. When I first learned how to crochet, this is what I did. I was placing all of my stitches in this little part thinking this was the ring. It's not. You want to look where your chain 4, once you've slip stitched it together, it's created this little space here. Right here, this is the ring that we're going to be working in. So make sure that you place all of your stitches right there, okay? Really important. It's hard to find sometimes, but if you just use your fingers, you can push through and you'll find that little ring right there. So let's move on to round 1. We're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Now throughout our pattern now for our granny square, anytime we start a new round and we chain up 3, this is going to count as our first double crochet of that round. So keep that in mind. In our ring here, we're going to place 2 double crochet. So yarn over, insert your hook into that ring, grabbing your yarn and pulling it back through. You have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That's your first real double crochet, but technically it's your second double crochet of the round because this one counts as our first. We're going to place 1 more in there, so yarn over into that center ring, grabbing your yarn and pulling it through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now what we have here is we have a grouping of 3 double crochet. We're going to have groupings like this all throughout our granny square. So just remember, we're going to be looking for groups of 3 as we work. So now that we have our grouping of 3, we're going to chain 2. 1, 2. And now we're going to place 3 double crochet into the ring again. So here we go with 3 double crochet. So here's 1, 2, and 3. My little dog is downstairs. She's upset that she's not up here with me and with all of you today while we're crocheting. And it's okay to kind of manipulate, work those stitches around so that they go to one side because we have a lot more stitches to put into this little ring. Here you can see that we've created a corner. That chain 2 allowed us to create a corner. And here's our 3 double crochet. We're going to chain 2 again, 1, 2, and we're going to place 3 more double crochet into our ring. You can see our ring is much more prominent now. You can see where that is. So place 3 more double crochet in there. Here's 1, here's 2, and here's 3. So there's our third grouping of 3. We want one more grouping of 3, so we're going to chain 2, give ourselves plenty of room in our ring, and we're going to place 3 more double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. So here we have 4 sets of our 3 double crochet. We need a corner here, so one more time we're going to chain 2, and we're going to slip stitch to the 3rd chain up. This was our first double crochet. It would be just like slip stitching to our first double crochet, so we're just going to go right into this chain here and slip stitch. And here is round 1 of our granny square. Let's take a look at it. I'm going to pull this out a little bit here so I don't lose my stitch. And let's take a nice look here. Let me turn this around a little bit. We have 4 sets of our 3 double crochets, our little groupings, and we have a corner with our chain 2s, each corner. So here's our little square. This is the very beginning of our granny square, and it looks like a little flower, doesn't it? Now if you'd like, you can take your beginning tail here, you can tug on it a little bit. That will tighten that up now. And we just have this pretty little flower that we're working with. This is round 1. We're going to be completing 6 rounds for our granny square. Let's go ahead and get our hook back on our yarn here and move on to round 2. Now, before we move on, I just want to let you know there are some granny squares that will have you finish your round and then turn your work, and you'll work back this way, and then you'll finish and you'll turn your work and you'll work back around. What we're going to do for this granny square, that kind of gives you a front side, back side, front side, back side. We're going to make it so that this has all of the front work on the front. We're not going to be turning our work back and forth the way some do. And in order to do that, we're going to have to work in our next available chain space, which is over here. To do that, we're going to slip stitch into the top of this double crochet here. Just slip stitch, and that brings our work over a little bit. We're also going to slip stitch into this stitch here, and that brings it over. Don't do it tightly, do it nice and loose. And that brings us over here to this chain 2 space. Go ahead and slip stitch into that chain 2 space, and just like that, we're keeping our work facing the right side up, and now we're where we need to be to work round 2. So for round 2, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and again, this is going to count as our first double crochet of this round. In order to get a grouping of 3, we're going to go ahead and we're going to place 2 double crochet right here in our chain 2 space of this corner. So here's our first double crochet, and here's our second double crochet. This will give us our grouping of 3 that we're looking for. Okay, but this is a corner. So what we're going to do to work our corner is something that's often referred to as a shell. We're going to create shells in our corner. So we have our 3 double crochet here. We're going to chain 2 for our corner, and we're going to place 3 more double crochet in this same chain 2 space where we placed our first 3. So let's place 3 more double crochet in this corner. There's 1, 2, and 3. And see, this gives us our next round, it gives us our nice corner. Now, we want to work now in this corner over here. And in order to get over here without bunching things too much, we're just going to chain 1. And then we're going to place 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet in this corner. We're going to create our corner shell now in this corner. So again, 3 double crochet. Here's 1, 2, and 3. And remember, you're working in that chain 2 space. You're not working in any stitches. And the reason it's important to work into that space instead of an actual stitch is it allows you to push your work over. This chain 2 is just going to slide through those stitches that you just completed, and it allows you to push it over to make room for your next 3. We're going to chain 2 to create our corner and finish our shell by placing 3 more double crochet in this corner. Here's 1, 2, and 3. There we go. And look, our second corner has been made for our granny square. We're going to chain 1 so that we can go over to our next corner and work our next shell. So into this chain 2 space here of this corner, we're going to work 3 double crochet. Here's 1, 2, and 3. We've taken up quite a bit of real estate there, so we're going to push it over to the side, chain 2, and work 3 more into that chain 2 space to complete our shell for our corner. There's 1, 2, and 3. And corner 3 of round 2 is complete. We're going to chain 1 and work our very last corner here in our chain 2 space, the same way that we worked our other corners. We're going to place 3 double crochet in that chain 2 space. There's 1, 2, and 3. Make sure we have plenty of room to work with. We'll chain 2 to create our corner and place 3 more double crochet in that chain 2 space. 1, 2, and 3. Now that creates our final corner, and we want to go ahead and join to where we started our round. We need to make sure we put that chain 1 space there before we move over. We're going to find our chain 1, 2, 3 from our first double crochet that we worked up, and just go ahead and place a slip stitch there and pull our yarn through, and we're going to close off this round with that slip stitch. And here is round 2 of our little granny square. I love how it always looks like a little flower in the center, and then we're building out. So let's go ahead and move on to round 3. We're going to slip stitch now across, just like what we did before, going into the top of our stitches and just doing nice little slip stitches across until we get to the corner. Nice and loose, don't do it too tight, and you can even barely see that we've done anything there. Here we are in our corner now. This is our first corner, and we're going to place a shell in the corner just like what we did for these corners, but then things are going to change a little bit, so don't get too far ahead of us. We're going to chain 3, and as always, that counts as our first double crochet of this round, round 3. We're going to place 2 double crochet into our chain 2 space in this corner here. This creates the very first part of our shell for our corner. Make sure you push everything over, chain 2, and place 3 double crochet in that very same corner space. Here's 1, 2, and 3. So it's always important to remember that every corner of your granny square will have 2 groupings of 3 with a chain 2 space in between. Now we've finished that second grouping of 3, and here's our corner. We're going to chain 1. And here we have this chain 1 space from the prior row. We're not going to go right over to this corner like we did before. We have to do something with this chain 1 space. In this chain one space, we're going to put a grouping of 3 double crochet. Remember, everything is done in groupings of 3. So we want 3 double crochet right here in this chain one space. You don't need to work into the chain. You're not working into a stitch. You're working in this space, and this is what will create this beautiful little gap that defines our granny square on our sides. So there's 3. Now, to get to this corner, we have to chain 1, just as we did before, and we're going to place our shell in this corner. Our shell again is our 3 double crochet, chain 2, and 3 double crochet, all in this little chain 2 space. So here's 1 double crochet, 2 double crochet, and 3 double crochet. Now I want to point something important out here that we've been discussing. When you get your 3 double crochet in, and I tell you how it's important that you just kind of push your work over, it's because you've kind of run out of real estate on that chain 2 space right here. I mean, you've got plenty of room here in this hole, but if you continue to do your work without giving yourself a little bit of wiggle room, your stitches are going to be very, very lopsided. You're going to have a lot of yarn that's going to be stretched over this as you try to work them. And here's an example. If I just keep doing this, do you see how these are going to get fatter and fatter as I go? Because they're going around something thick. Okay, and we don't want these big stitches here. We don't want those. We want nice, uniform stitches. And in order to get that, we have to do the stitches over the chain 2 that we're working on in this space. So again, push your work out of the way a little bit, chain 2, and then create 3 more double crochet around this chain here in your space. Nice, even, uniform double crochets. There's 2, and here's 3. See how nice and uniform they are? They're not all big and fat because we gave ourselves that room. We're going to chain 1, go to our next chain 1 space here from our prior row, and we're going to create a grouping of 3 double crochet in this chain 1 space. Here's 1, 2, and again it's a small space. It's okay to push that over a little bit if you need that room. And there's 3. Chain 1 and complete a shell in the corner. This is going to be your 3rd corner here. It's going to be your 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet. Chain 2, 3 more double crochet in that space. Chain 1 and create a grouping of 3 double crochet in your chain 1 space. Chain 1, work your shell in the corner. Chain 1 and place a grouping of 3 in this chain 1 space. Here's 1, 2, and 3. Before you join, remember to chain 1. You need to have a chain 1 space here. Go to your first double crochet, which was really your chain 3. Chain 1, chain 2, chain 3. You're just going to slip stitch right in there and pull your yarn through and pull your yarn through, completing round 3. And here you can see you've got your corners, and then we have our groupings of 3 in our chain 1 spaces as our granny square builds round after round. So round 1, round 2, round 3. Let's move on to round 4. Again, you're going to slip stitch over, slip stitch into that very first stitch there nice and loose, slip stitch into the next one nice and loose, and then slip stitch into your chain 2 space. That works your way over to this corner, and we're going to work round 4. Just as before, we're going to chain 3. This counts as your first double crochet of your shell. And in order to get your grouping of 3, we're going to place 2 double crochet in our chain 2 space of our corner. There's 2. We're going to chain 2, making sure we have plenty of room, and place 3 double crochet in our corner. There's 2 and 3. Having completed our shell in our corner, we're going to chain 1. We're going to come over to our very first chain 1 space of our previous round and place 3 double crochet. So a grouping of 3. Here's 1, 2, and 3. Moving across, we have another chain 1 space here. To get to this chain 1 space, just like we did before, we're going to chain 1 and do a grouping of 3 double crochet in our chain 1 space. So there's 1, 2, and 3. We're coming up to our next corner. We're going to chain 1 and work our shell in our corner, which is 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, just as before. And there's our second corner of round 4. We're going to continue this round, and I'll meet you over here, remembering to make sure that you put your chain 1 spaces in between working your corners. So chain 1, work 3 double crochet in this chain 1 space. Chain 1, work 3 double crochet in this chain 1 space. Chain 1, and then work your shell in the corner of 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet. You're going to work that all the way around, and I will meet up with you where we're going to join round 4 together. Working in our final chain 1 space of our round 4 of our granny square block, we're going to go ahead and place our grouping of 3 double crochets in our chain 1 space. Chain 1 and slip stitch into 1, 2, the 3rd chain of our chain up that counted as our first double crochet. And here we've completed round 4. You're going to complete this 2 more times. Go ahead, slip stitch over to your corner, work your shell and then your groupings into your chain 1 spaces and your shells all the way around. Complete round 5 and then do that again for round 6. I will meet up with you at the end of round 6. Okay, we're here at the end of our round 6 for our granny square. I'm in my last chain 1 space. I have 2 double crochets already placed in here. I'm going to place my 3rd double crochet and chain 1, And I'm going to go over here to my corner here, and I'm going to count up 1, 2, 3 chains. That was our very first double crochet. Slip stitch into there. It's a little tricky sometimes. And slip stitch all the way through. And that completes round 6. Now, as always, don't finish off your work. You're going to want to work your round 1 of your edging all the way around. So go ahead and at this point, go ahead and slip stitch over to the corner, nice and loosely. And right here in our corner, oops, I'm kind of caught up there. There we go. Now that we're here in our corner, we'll start our edging with our 3 single crochet, and then you're going to work your 25 single crochet across to your other corner as evenly as you can. You can work in your chain 1 spaces, you can double up if you need to, you can reduce if you need to. Just make sure that you evenly work 25 across until you get to this corner here. So once you finish round 1 of your edging, then you'll go ahead and finish off with this color C. You'll join color A and complete round 2 of your edging. Make sure that you get yourself a little tag so you can write on it what week this is. This is week 16, Granny Square for our Heirloom Afghan Crochet Along. Once you have your edging done, go ahead and put it aside with your other blocks and get ready for week number 17. Thank you so much for joining me for this crochet along for our classic Granny Square. I hope you have a great week. We will see you again soon. Until then, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and have a blessed day. Bye-bye.